Hello, in this tutorial, we'll be going over how to use the YouTube API to get YouTube comments from any YouTube video you have if you have that video's ID. And so I already have the code written out on this file here, but I will be doing it from scratch on here for reference and making an end-to-end project again. So first of all, we would need to use the YouTube API, and for that we need the tools called Google API Client here. We'd have to go to VS Code and install these. I already have these installed, but if you do not have these installed, you would run pip install Google API Python client, and then it should show that I already have this installed. Yes, I already have that requirement satisfied. So then from there, I can import Google over here. I can have Google API client.discovery and then Google API client.errors. So I can just have that rewritten here. And then from there, we will also need to have the pandas data frame installed. And that's because we will be converting this data that's in the API to a pandas data frame first. So if you don't have pandas already installed, then you would also do pip install pandas. And pandas is a module for data analysis within Python and for converting things to data frames or converting tables to other things like it's CSV files or Excel tables or multiple different options. So now that we have pandas installed, we can import it and we can do import pandas. And most people import it as PD just because you have to call it multiple times and writing pandas over and over again can get pretty redundant. So we will just reference it as PD for now. And the database that we'll be using in this tutorial is called SQL Alchemy. We can create our own database and then have that data be sent there. And from here, you can do pip install SQL Alchemy. And from SQL Alchemy, we can import create engine. And what create engine will do is it is creating that engine to make the database for us with the credentials needed. Now we can start to work with YouTube's API. So to start using the YouTube API, you can search YouTube API in your browser and then go down to where the Google Cloud Console is, to where it shows that you have a marketplace within Google Cloud. Here I already have a API key enabled, so that's why mine's enabled, but here you can click on manage or maybe create new. And then here, this is where you can work with YouTube's API. And you'll need to create a credential to use their API. And here you can do that by going to credentials. And I already have an API key created here, but if I were to create another one, then what I would do is create credentials, and then here I would choose API key, and then here it will be creating an API key for you. This is my API key now, and so you want to keep this one, and this is how you will access YouTube's API. And the credentials you'll need to get into the YouTube API are a service name, a developer key, and the version that you're using. For that, we can specify that here. So we can say our API service name is equal to YouTube. And here we can specify our version. I'm using v3, but in your case, if you're using a different version, you have to change that to whichever one you're using, and then our developer key. And this developer key is the one that was just generated for you in Google Cloud. I can go back here to Google Cloud, and then I can show my key and then copy to a clipboard. And from here, I can go back into VS Code and then paste this. And here are our credentials. The next section is where we can input our YouTube credentials into the connector for YouTube. We can label this as inputting YouTube credentials. And we can just label this as YouTube. We can call Google API client again, and then .discovery.build, and that will allow us to connect to YouTube using our credentials that we have earlier. So now I can specify with the same credentials I had. So API service name, API version, and then developer key equal to our developer key that we've created already. And if I run this, then it runs. Looks like we're off to a good start. Now we want to learn how to get all of the comments for a video as well as the replies from that video. We can label this as function to get all comments and replies from a video. We can define this as define get comments for video. And from here, as keyword arguments, we will need the YouTube credentials that we used earlier to be able to access the video. You can say YouTube here. And we also need the video ID for the specific video that we're trying to get comments and replies from. We can label this as video ID. From here, what we want to do is to create an empty list to append all of our eventual YouTube comments to. We can label this as comments equal to an empty list. And since we're getting all the comments and replies from a video, there's also cases where there may be comments and replies on multiple pages within a video. So we need to include that in our algorithm where if there's more than one page, then it would go through all of those pages and then extract those comments and then add them onto our existing comments. So for that, we can create a variable called next page token equal to none. And here's the documentation on YouTube's website that shows the data that we'll be extracting from each comment section. Here's like the video ID. So this is where we'll be inputting the video ID as well as the page token that we'll be extracting from, and then as well as the text format of how the data will come through and so forth. From here, what we can do, we can include the part parameter first because this is a required field. So we can say while true, and then to call from that specific comment thread, we can call this comment request equal to, and then we're using this same YouTube credential input here. So we're saying YouTube dot comment threads dot list. And then we can say part equal to snippet video ID equal to the video ID that will be inputted as a parameter, page token equal to next page token, the text format here, the text format, we need the plain text because it comes in plain text format, so we'll go back here and say text format equal to plain text, and then max results equal to 100. This is getting at most 100 comments from a specific video when you have the ID input as a parameter. And to have it actually execute, you can say comment response equal to comment request dot execute. This part here, this is just the information that is tied to a specific video. And now within that video, we need to get the actual comments that are in that video's comment section. We'll need to create a for loop to then go through each comment to then append it to the comment section. We can do for item in comment response items. This comment section in YouTube's documentation is giving you information about a single YouTube comment. This shows the information that we'll be using to extract from each individual comment and then inputting that into our empty list. Here it has properties such as the channel ID, the text display, original text, viewer rating, like count, and multiple other options. We'll just be looking at a few options. First, to get a comment, we have to specify the comment equal to item, snippet, top level comment, and snippet. And within that empty list we created earlier, up here, we can do comments dot append, and from here we can include each individual property that we would like to have returned. We can create it as a list here, and then within this list we can say comment, get the channel ID, we can get the text display, we'll be getting the original text, we'll also have the viewer rating, can get the like count, and we can get the date when it was published, as well as when it was updated. This will give us the comments that we need, but we also want to get possible replies as well if there are any. So we need to add that onto our algorithm to see if there's any replies, and if they are there, then include that in our comment section. I can say that this will be to fetch replies if there are any. We can say that if the item snippet, if that total reply count is greater than 0, we will add this on to our comments section. So we'll need to create a function to also get the replies back from a YouTube comment section. We can put that up here to then reference later. With our function for getting the replies, we can just copy and paste the code that we have here, because it's essentially still getting the same thing, but it's just with one comment versus getting everything. So we can still copy this here and just specify it to replies instead. Instead of get comments for video, we can just say get replies. And in this case, we'll need to add a parent ID, because the parent ID is what will allow us to say which comment we're getting our information from. And here, instead of comments, we can call it replies. And here, instead of comment threads, we can just say comments. And just where it says comment, we can replace that with reply. This is doing the same thing. It will just be, instead of comments, getting replies from a certain area. I have replies.append here. This will add on to our replies area and then have this returned. And then we can also specify if there is multiple pages included. We can say our next page token equals reply response dot get and then next page token. And then if there is no page token, so So if there's only a single page, then we would break out of the loop. And then finally, we would return the replies. Okay, and coming back to this function that is getting all the comments for the video, we're at this part, so we can now reference the replies function that we just created. We can say get replies, and then from our original credentials, we need YouTube argument, parent ID, and then a video ID as well. We can just say this is YouTube. Parent ID is a specific comment that we're looking for. In this case, it would be snippet, and then it's top level comment and the ID for it. And then finally, just having the video ID. And we need the same next page token part down here. We can say that next page token equals comment under response dot get, and then next page token. If there is no next page token, then we can break out of the loop. And then finally, we can just return the list of comments. Okay, if we run this, this should run. Okay, apply to response next page token. Oh, I put this out here. And then this should run here. Cool, good. That is all the portion about getting the YouTube comments and replies through. And now we can work on trying to get it appended to our database. We can go down here and then we can create a new data frame out of the data that we extracted. We can make a create data frame function. And our data frame we can just call df, and we'll say pd.dataframe, and our keyword inputs will be the comments that we extracted. And then we can specify the columns, saying columns equal to these categories that we extracted here. So channel ID, text display, original text, and so on. We have channel ID, we have text display, text original, viewer rating, like count, published at, and finally updated at. And then down here we can just return our data frame. Okay, that should have the data frame created once we have our comments extracted from a YouTube video. And now we can work on the database connection. And for that, we can specify here, so create the database that we insert our data into. Here we can create a database connection, so we can define it as a function. So create database connection. And now here we'll use what's called a try function. And a try function is saying that if we are successful with the connection, then it'll return a comment. It's just easier for debugging in the future because you know exactly where your errors are versus if you don't have them and you get an error message, you don't really know where it stops at. We can say that our DB connection is equal to the create engine function that we imported earlier. We can call this SQLite YouTube comments dot database. The try function will say if this connection is successful we're creating, we can print database connection successful. And we can throw an exception, so if the connection does not work, then we can say except print database connection unsuccessful. And then finally we can return DB connection. Okay, and now we can work on inserting our data into the database that we just created. Let's say inserts the data into the database. And we create another function to insert our data. So define insert table. And the parameters for this is the connection that we created, as well as the data frame that we have as well with our data included. So we can use more error handling here. So we can say try. And so with our data frame that was inputted as an argument, we can do .toSQL. And what .toSQL will do is with that data frame that is created, it will convert it to a database table within SQL. So we can say YouTube comments, and then we're including our database connection. And we want to say that if that same connection already exists, then we will be replacing it. So if there's already a table that is called YouTube comments that's created, it will drop that one and then create a new one out of the one that we created. This is successful, so we want to print out data inserted successfully into SQL. And if this fails, we print data was not successfully inserted. Now we need to create a data pipeline to actually implement all of the code that we've created. We can say that this runs the data pipeline, and we can create a function for that. So define run data pipeline. The comments will be equal to the function up here, get comments for video. So this is where it starts. So we come back down and then get comments for video. We can say our YouTube parameter equals just the YouTube credentials that we have. For video ID, we want to prompt the user to input that ID for themselves. We can say video ID equals to input enter the YouTube videos ID. And we can say that our data frame is equal to the create data frame function that we created earlier, and then the comments are just equal to the comments. And then our database connection will just be equal to that create database connection function that we made earlier. And then finally, for our insert table function, we can say that our database connection is equal to that database connection, and then our data frame is just equal to that data frame. And then finally down here, we can just call this run data pipeline function that we just created. So we can just say run data pipeline down here. Here I started to get some error messages, so I started to do some editing and trying to figure out the issue. And I found that the reason was because I had some keyword arguments not equal to what the parameters were specifically needing in the inputs. So for example, with the YouTube credentials, it needed to specifically have the letters a certain way, so with the capitalizations, and I went to go change those. Oh, I think I know what it is. So here I had to put this equal to something else. I think I renamed it on accident, but that should take care of it now. So if we run this again, page token. So if you try changing this here, see if that changes it. Text format, okay. Oh, so this should be capital. Okay, and I think also this should be capital too. Okay, so I think I had to change these letters here because they had to follow a specific format of what it looked like in the comments section. So if I change this to max results like here, and also down here too, if I run this, how does this work? There's no text. Oh, it's text original. Okay, it's not original text. Oh, so get replies shouldn't have a video ID because it's already specified. It just needs the parent ID. I see, that makes sense. Okay, so yeah, so apparently you need to have this changed as well. This should be parent ID equal to parent ID. Okay, and then run this. Oh, I see. It's supposed to be parent ID like this. Okay. So then if you run this, oh, so you have to also get rid of this here because you're not getting the comments anymore. It's just the replies. Okay. So I have to get rid of that. Oh, I see what I didn't add because I didn't call this function. That's why it never created the database connection. Okay, so now if you run this, there we go. Okay, what you can also do is download an extension here called SQLite. It allows you to run queries within your workspace that you created. In our situation here, I have this folder already created, and the database that we just created was called YouTube comments.db, and it's this one here. But if you go to here and then you select new query, and then if you select everything from the from the table that we just created, and you can right click and say run query, all of the records show here. So we have the channel ID, we have the display of the text, including emojis as well. And then it shows on multiple pages as well. So it gets all the comments from this video that we include the ID for. So if you download this extension, SQLite, it allows you to run that and see for yourself that the output of what that looks like for any YouTube video. Thank you for following along with me. Hope to include this on your resume, and make sure to follow and like for more.